Welcome everybody to another GYLS momentum session. This one today is actually extra special because it's an afternoon one. We usually do these in the morning. It's 6:30 p.m. in Toronto, New York time. It's 3:30 in the afternoon in LA, which I know Alec is watching, which is cool. And right now our presenter all the way from Australia, tomorrow, Sunday, 8:30 in the morning, we've got Navdeep. I've had the privilege of hanging out with him over the last 2 years at GYLS. He was on my away team the first year, and I was on the alumni team last year. And he's the man, and he's going to talk about honesty. So, without further ado, here he is. Take it away, buddy.
Cool. Hello, awesome people. I'm so excited for you to be here. And it's pretty amazing right now. We have an international group of leaders. We have people in the audience from Canada, from the UK, from America, and myself from Australia. So I can feel just today is going to be a time of great collaboration. Now, honesty is the subject of today's webinar. Honesty is a very talked about subject in the history of mankind. Some of the greatest minds of all times have commented on it. Socrates, the Greek philosopher, said that it's not living that matters, but living rightly. Shakespeare in 1605 said that honesty is the best policy. And even in our modern day, with Kanye West, who rapped, "Nothing lasts forever, but be honest, babe. It hurts, but it may be the only way." Yes, there was a time when Kanye wasn't the almighty Jesus we know today. It was in a galaxy far, far away, long before the Taylor Swift incident. I'ma let you finish. But back on track. Although honesty is often talked about, it's actually quite a complex subject. And that's why we're having this session today. When is it right to be honest? What does it mean to be honest with myself? Does that mean being realistic, or does that mean being optimistic? And which one is better? And which one is right? Is cucumber a vegetable or a fruit? It can be honestly very overwhelming at times. Did you get the pun? For today's session, we're going to focus more on self-honesty. In particular, we're going to have two sections. The first one is taking aim, and the second one is taking action. And I look forward to it. But just before we get started today, I just want to remind you of how brilliant you all are for taking the time to being here, watching it either live or after, and taking the investment in yourself. Just importantly, so I can add as much value as possible, I'd love your feedback to the Facebook group, which Sergio is kindly running. Thank you for the opportunity. Any questions? If I'm talking too fast, if you just want a virtual high five, I'd love your feedback. Fantastic. All right, let's start first off. First off, we're going to start with taking aim. Now, Nelson Mandela once said that the first thing is to be honest with yourself. You can never have any impact on society if you have not changed yourself. Now, each one of us here has potential. Potential for success and achievement, potential to try new things, to light up people's lives, and to make an impact on the world around us. Potential to leave a lasting legacy. But by being dishonest with ourselves, we rob ourselves of that ample potential. It's all gone, and it's all self-inflicted. But what do I mean being dishonest with myself? Another way to put it is not being congruent with ourselves. Or in other words, when we know what we want in life, we know a goal or something we're striving towards, but we're not working towards it. So we're not consistent with what we want. Does that make sense? All right, cool. Some people are saying yes. Fantastic. Now, imagine this. You know what you want to achieve in life. It could be the grades. It could be getting a certain job. It could be making an impact in the world, sports, maybe getting to elite level, whatever it is, right? And you know what you want to achieve, and you're really quite certain. But somewhere along the way, with society and people who are maybe not on the same level of drive as you, you come to this conclusion that it's just too hard. It's too complicated. You'll never be able to do it, And why should you be bothered? Because you're going to fail anyway. And you're just not willing to take the effort. Imagine that. Now imagine this. It's the last day of your life. You're sitting there in your deathbed. You have a bleak expression on your face as you look at your wrinkled skin. Looking back on a life full of what ifs. What if I tried? What if I took the effort? What if I stepped up and tried to achieve what I wanted to achieve? What if I took that opportunity? Now, you've got to ask yourself, would you be satisfied looking back on a life full of what ifs? Because I know I certainly would not. Now, imagine that this last day of your life is tomorrow. A little bit extreme, but you got to think about it. What if it was tomorrow? How would you feel? That your whole life is just compromised of what ifs. Now, I'm not saying that by taking action, which we'll get to, everything's going to run smoothly. I'm not saying that. But I got to ask you, when you kick a goal, when you hit a run, when you go in for a tackle, or you smash something with a racket, are you thinking about the possibility of failure? Or are you so focused in that moment and all your energy is going towards there? And that's the sort of energy you got to have towards achieving what you want to achieve. Now, I have another question. I don't know about you, but I was not this child prodigy who, when I learned how to ride a bike, I did it straight away. Nor when I learned how to walk. In fact, from what I've been told, I had 3 wheels for quite a long time, actually. It was pretty concerning. But, you know, I kept falling down and getting back up and falling down and getting back up. And I would get hurt. Yes, as in life, you might get hurt doing what you want to do. But you learn from that. And then from that learning, you learn how to ride the bike or achieve what you want to learn. Now, this might sound like some very general stuff, but give me a second. I'll get the screen share on. There's actually a whole concept named after this failing and learning. It's called flirning. Just give me 1 second. All right, can you see my PowerPoint? Flirning. Now, flirting came about quite a few years ago in the startup world. It's this whole movement that you understand you're going to get hit. You understand you're going to fall off the bike. But because you can preempt it and because you see it coming, you're like, #flirn. I'm just going to learn from it and get better. So I hope that makes sense. That's sort of my mantra now. You know, when something goes wrong, it's not like, oh my God, it's the end of the world. What am I going to do? It's flirn. Fail and learn. And this has gone to quite an extent. Actually, there's a flirn convention in Sydney a couple of years ago. The whole community is online. People just talking about their failures from which they learn. Fantastic. So you can check that out at a time. And there's also this thing that Martin Luther King said. He said that faith is taking the first step even when you do not see the whole staircase. Right? And I know the people who are watching this, either during or after, have been exposed to quite a bit of, personal development, motivational stuff. So I'm not going to stand here and convince you, but maybe just take a different approach. A lot of people are like, you got to keep going hard and getting for the success, keep going, have that persistence, have that commitment and drive and stuff like that. I'm suggesting a different approach, that you understand that your failure is inevitable, but don't think of it as failure. Think of it as learning. Think of it as flirning. So if there's one main takeaway I want you to take, sound like a Chinese restaurant person, is flirn your way to the top. I repeat, flirn your way to the top. Like, I know already in this webinar, I've made mistakes. You would have noticed it. I might have noticed it. But it means the next time I do a webinar, I'm going to be so much better. Hopefully, right? So I'm flirning. It's pretty exciting. Because then nothing is bad. It's just like, yeah, flirn. Yeah, I flirned it. So it's pretty cool in that sense. So now we get to the part which I'm most excited about, because I know you guys have heard about, getting motivated, getting your goal and stuff like that quite a while now, right? And you're all brilliant people, so we know that. Also, if any questions, you can send it to Sergio. But now we're going to move on to my favorite section, taking action. Now, imagine this, all right? You've got that goal. You know what you're working towards. You're taking aim. You don't want a life full of what ifs. You're like, I'm going to get that. And it doesn't matter how I get there because I'm going to flirn, right? Maybe you've been to a seminar. Maybe you've read a book. Maybe you watched a webinar with a handsome man with glasses and black hair, right? Maybe you've done something to pump yourself up and you're really, really pumped and you have all these ideas and talks and goals and everything. And you are here in levels of motivation and drive. Time passes by, you go back into your own environment, and slowly but surely, maybe 2 months later, you're down here. And your motivation is gone and you're back in your own rut. And I've seen way too many people fall in this trap, including myself back in the day, of getting to a high point of energy and then just letting it slide, right? In foresight, this is actually one of the most common reasons that people have negative connotations towards personal development, right? They think that some guy is going to get me to jump up in a room or reflect on my life and shout out yes, and then it's just going to fade. Honestly, though, that's on you, not on the speaker. And what we're going to talk about today is some common causes of this drop of energy, as well as how to prevent it and ensure that you take action consistently. So just to recap, we've taken our aim, what we want. We've gotten the spike of motivation because it should drive you, right? I'm not going to tell you what you want because it's different, right? Some people like chocolate ice cream. Some people like vanilla ice cream. Some people don't like ice cream. I'll let you choose what your dessert is. So yes, just to recap, we have yourself over here, the really motivated, driven person who's ready to get that goal and is inspired and is ready to take action. And then you have over here, the version of yourself that has achieved the goal. Cool. What we want to do is fill that gap. And we're going to talk about how. Just to clarify and give us some terminology that we can work with, a good term to use about that drop in energy is actually entrepreneur. And we'll get to what that is later. It was introduced to me by Dan Norris in the 7-Day Startup. It's a great book. You should read it. But we'll talk about what being a entrepreneur is and why right now we want to prevent you from being an entrepreneur. Fantastic. All right, so let's get to it. What are some of the main reasons that people become an entrepreneur? The first one is too much planning. Now, if you're like me, you get really excited when you start to plan, I could do this, I could do this, I know this person, let's say I want a personal trainer. I'm going to interview all 10 personal trainers. I'm going to check out their resume. I'm going to get the best meal plan. I'm going to do this and do that and do that. And it's really exciting in your head because you can see it, right? You can see the vision for what you want to achieve. Now, Mike Tyson, the fantastic boxer he was, even though he bit off somebody's ear, Mike Tyson had a quote. And he said that everybody, all boxers, have a game plan until they get punched in the face. And so I want you to relate this to your own life. You may have a game plan and have all this big strategy about how you're going to achieve your goal, but unless you actually start doing something, you're not going to know if that hypothesis is a reality, right? When we talked about flirting, I can already tell I'm going to get punched in the face. And it doesn't faze me as much anymore because I can see it coming, right? Metaphorically speaking, please. That I'm going to get punched in the face. But here's the thing. The faster you get punched in the face, the faster you learn how to defend it. And the faster you learn how to get back up and build your stamina. So it's very important to not have paralysis by analysis. It's good to have a plan, right? It's, how do I say? In the startup world, it's like, don't plan for 6 months. Plan at max for the next 6 days. At the max. Go out there, get in the boxing ring, get punched, but at least you're moving forward. Does this make sense? Can I get some feedback? All right, fantastic. Some people are saying yes. So having too much planning can actually hold you back. Because here's the thing, as we talked about the energy, right? The energy graph, you're going up, up, up. And say time is coming, you're going down. You're planning, but your energy is coming down, right? You got to capture it in that moment. So get in the boxing ring and get punched. It's exciting because then you become tougher and you know how to defend yourself. So that's the first thing that prevents people from taking action is too much planning, right? The second thing is relying on others to motivate you. Do you know what I mean? This relates a lot to your environment. And Elijah Oxenham, he did a great session a while ago on your environment. What I'm referring to here is, let's say you're really driven, right? You're really driven and you want to achieve something. But say maybe your friends, they don't support you that much. Okay? Say maybe your friends aren't holding you accountable. Maybe your family is not holding you accountable. Somebody you truly care about is not holding you accountable. Now, the easy thing to do is sort of say, as we talked about earlier, I'm not getting the support I need. The people I really care about are not too keen about this, and hence I'm going to stop. Now, you got to understand, in most cases, in almost every case, if you achieve this goal or not, your friends are still going to be your friends. If you achieve this goal or not, your parents are still going to love you. And if you achieve this goal or not, you will probably still be alive. So that being said, because your family and friends hopefully accept you for who you are, they're not going to, they'll be okay if you do not achieve the goal. But the question is not if they're okay. The question is if you are okay. Are you okay with not achieving what you want to achieve? Are you okay with not getting that grade, that job, that opportunity, that personal development and sport? That is the real question. And moving on to that, it's all about decisions. You got to keep constantly reminding yourself, am I okay? Am I okay with not getting this? And if you're not, that's fantastic. If you are, it might be hard to keep the motivation going. Because your family, your friends, they'll still love you. Okay? But you have to take your own action and be accountable for yourself. Gandhi said that to believe something and not to live it is living a dishonest life. And that's how it links back to the honesty with that Gandhi quote. Now, we're moving on. The last thing is too much talk. And this relates to planning. You talk about these big ideas, you get excited, I'm going to start this business, I'm going to go ask this girl out, I'm going to do this, get this grade, and you talk about it. And you plan it, and then you get punched in the face and you didn't see anything coming, and your energy is gone. So those are some of the reasons why people do not take action. But now we're going to move on and bridge the gap and give you some tools and techniques and strategies on how to make sure that you take action. Would you guys be interested in hearing this? Raise your hand. All right, fantastic. We got some feedback from Sweden. That's pretty cool. We got feedback from Sweden. All right, here we go. Say you have a goal. Let's say this goal is, let's say running, okay? I know we have a friend from Fiji who has a goal for running. You might want to take this down. One way to make taking action so much easier is to gamify your goal. Okay? Think about some of the most famous apps of all time. Think about Tinder, think about Snapchat, think about Instagram. They all have a game element to it, right? Swipe left, swipe right. Send a cool Snapchat, save the Snapchat, have a Snap story, have a hashtag. It makes it really, really fun, actually, to have a gamified version. And it makes it fun. It doesn't make it tedious for you. Does this make sense? So just some ideas on that. We had this really cool friend from Fiji, Jasmine. She had this running goal, right? But a lot of people do it by kilometers. A lot of people do it by speed and repetition, which exciting at first when you're at the peak can get a little bit less exciting as you go down. So she was like, I want to do this, but I don't want it to feel like a chore. I want it to feel like something I really want to do and enjoy doing. So what did she do? She gamified it. She didn't measure by speed. She didn't measure by distance. She measured it by how many pump-up songs she could run to. So she had a playlist of music that's pumping her up and she was enjoying herself. It was like a game, and just as many songs as she could withstand. So pretty much party as hard as she could. Which is pretty cool. So that's one way of gamifying it. And another way I use is the superhero method, right? In all honesty, time management is something I have a real issue with. Like a real issue. Suddenly a good friend of mine, or my dad actually, started saying, Nav, the on-time man. And that sort of became my superhero facade. It sounds lame. It was lame. It was a dad joke, let's be honest. But with Nav, the on-time man, it sort of became my new identity, And every time I'd be on time, it'd be like, Nav, the on-time man. Nav, the on-time man. Nav, the on-time man. So you sort of make it like a superhero. So this, you can do it with music. You can gamify it. You can have like a reward. Every time you do it, you get a chocolate or something. unless you're doing a health goal, it'd be kind of awkward. Cause a little bit of internal tension. You can superhero it. So that's one way of taking you from aim to action. So I hope that makes sense. Gamifying is a really fantastic thing. It's created some of the most successful apps in the world, and hopefully it'll help you achieve what you want to achieve. So moving on from Gamify, we now have decisions. See, life is pretty much making decision. When your family is cool with you, doing what you're already doing and not changing, you have to make the decision. Do I want that new goal, or do I want to do this? Do I want that new goal, or do I just want to go back to my own ways? I'll say it again. Do I want my old goal, or can I just go back to my old ways? Now, an economist once told me that humans have this thing with delayed gratification. What do I mean by delayed gratification? When a squirrel gathers nuts, it gathers nuts for the winter time. So because it knows it cannot go outside of its nest or whatever during the winter. And it has to gather nuts in preparation for winter, all throughout the summer, all throughout the spring, right? But here's the thing. The squirrel knows that if it doesn't put away the nuts in the winter, it's going to die. So it's planning for the future already. It's delaying the gratification of eating the nuts right there and right then. Instead, it's knowing, okay, I need to save this for later so I can eat it. Whereas in a human, you put them in front of some, like, you know, TV, social media, chocolate stuff, they'll take it straight away. So in a sense, even squirrels are better than us at delayed gratification. So I hope that makes sense. If you guys can still see me, I would really appreciate you guys telling me, because Sergio has unfortunately been cut off. But I'll just keep going in case you're still there. Yeah, so as we were saying with squirrels, you know, even squirrels are good at getting nuts and stuff and keeping it there. So you got to ask yourself and picture yourself getting the goal. What does it mean to achieve your goal? What will it give you? Will it give you happiness? Will it give you joy? Will it give you something material? It's up to you. But how would you feel when you actually achieve the goal? And once you have that picture in mind about how fantastic it is, how it positively influences the people around you, the difference it makes in your life, and the feeling you get, you've got to keep that as a comparison. I'll tell you why. You keep it as a comparison because then whenever something else comes up that could distract you, such as social media, anything really, such as social media as an outing, in being comfortable instead of going hard, you'll have that thing to compare it to. So you think in your mind, okay, would I rather this feeling of bliss and joy and achievement, or would I rather this outdated episode of Friends? Friends is fantastic, don't get me wrong. But just to repeat, would I rather this fantastic sense of achievement, or would I rather watching this episode of Friends? And this makes it a lot easier because you know that something else, something better is available. You know that by taking decision B, you get a much better result than taking decision A, watching that TV episode of reality TV, keeping up with the Kardashians or whatever, right? Fantastic. So just two things so far. You got to gamify your results. And secondly, you know what the alternative is. Economics, we call this opportunity cost. By watching that episode of Keeping Up with the Kardashians, what are you giving up? You're giving up that prized possession of your achievement, that feeling of bliss, of enjoyment, and personal satisfaction. And when you can see the opportunity cost of what you're giving up, it makes a really, really big difference. Because you're like, hey, sure, this is going to have me now, this much happiness. But if I take an action towards my goal, it's going to give me this much happiness. So I hope that makes sense. So two things so far: gamifying. We talked about Snapchat and stuff like that, superhero, singing songs. And secondly, we talked about accountability. Yes, accountability is what we're going to talk about now. I'm sorry, I messed up there. You know, even me, I'm learning right now. We talk about gamifying things. And as well as that, we talked about the opportunity cost. So comparing what you could have, comparing your two options. What's going to happen depending on the actions you take. And I like to say, flirting is all about taking one step, even though you're not ready. Martin Luther King said that faith is taking the first step even when you take the whole staircase. Case in point, I personally did not have a lot of time to prepare for this webinar, right? I had a lot of client meetings yesterday. I have an event I'm performing at today, and I also have assessment due all at the same time. But I knew that this opportunity, if I didn't take it, I wouldn't learn from it, and I wouldn't be able to add value. And albeit this is probably not the best I will be, and I'll get better at the webinars. I'm just learning right now. So I hope you take that in consideration when thinking, just take the first step. I'm going to get punched in the face anyway. Might as well do it sooner than later so I can learn, right? So lastly, we move on to accountability. Now, if I could just get the screen share on, give me a quick second. Get the screen share on. Entrepreneur. Now, this is something I like to use, a term I like to use quite a bit. As I said, it was introduced by Dan Norris, 7-Day Startup, a really great book. Now, what's the entrepreneur test? And by the way, just to recap, entrepreneur is when you go up, 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 and then you don't take action, you go down in motivation and drive. What's the entrepreneur test? Now, one way you can do the entrepreneur test is tell a friend the action you're taking towards achieving your goal and everything you've accomplished so far. And ensure that 1 week from then, you meet with the same friend or send them an update or something like that. If that 1 week passes by and you're still saying the same stuff, like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, right? And there hasn't been a change in achievement, not an aspiration, right? But in achievement, they're two different things. If there hasn't been a change in achievement in that 1 week, that was a very entrepreneur of a week, right? And even though it says entrepreneur, it doesn't just apply to business. It can apply to sports, it can apply to academics, it can apply to community service. It's just a term, entrepreneur. And here's the thing. A lot of people are like, do not be hard on yourself, love yourself. And I agree with that. You should love yourself. You should not be too hard on yourself. You should not be extreme. At the same time, though, it's important to keep your standards. Why? Because as we discussed earlier, your family and friends, regardless of if you keep your standards or not, will love you. So it's actually a competition with yourself. You have to keep yourself in line. An easy way to do that is gamifying it, right? Or the other approach, having the opportunity cost. But when it boils down to it, it's really a competition with yourself. So the entrepreneur test, once a week with accountability. Just talking about standards, there's a really good book by Jim Collins. It's called Good to Great. He talks about being rigorous, not ruthless. I'll say it again. He talks about being rigorous, not ruthless. I'll just put the screen share off. Fantastic. So being rigorous, not ruthless is what I mean by this. You should not be too hard on yourself. Should not be extreme. Like, every single little thing you stuff up on, you get mad on yourself. Why? Because now we know that we've learned.
Alert from calendar.
Does that make sense? We know that we've learned now. In fact, me and Sergio right now, we're having technical difficulties, right, on the side. We're learning right now. Like, seriously, Sergio was cut off for 20 minutes then. I was freaking out. You didn't know. That's okay. We're learning. What a time to learn, right? On live. But anyways, so you not too hard at yourself that every time you learn, you start questioning your ability and hating yourself and stuff like that. No. Don't question your ability. Question your effort. I'll say it again. Do not question your ability. Question your effort. And how do you do this? With the once a week entrepreneur challenge. Okay. Now, on Monday, I felt like an entrepreneur. I was pissed off. I set a goal to myself to read a book every 4 days. Okay. I was really, really pissed off because I was not going to reach that goal. I had talked myself up. I had told other people that I'm going to do it, the accountability thing. And I knew that I was 3 days away from being deemed an entrepreneur in my own mind, which pissed me off because it's something I'm passionate about. And I had to feel that small amount of pain to drive me. It's not ideal, but because I did the test, the entrepreneur challenge, I felt that small amount of pain and it drove me. And as a result, from last Wednesday, in the last week, I've read 500 pages outside of my studies, right? It works, it drives you. So it's important to be rigorous and keep questioning yourself. Do not be easy on yourself. Because other people, unless they're a true friend, will be nice to you because they don't want to hurt your feelings. So it's really important to be tough on yourself. Okay, not extremely, not ruthless, but rigorous. A lot of people are like, yeah, I'm gonna do this, let's get motivated, woohoo, I believe in myself, fantastic. And I think it's really fantastic to have that base. But as we talked about, here is the aspiration, here is the achievement. How do we fill that gap? Just to recap, you can gamify. Just to recap, you have the opportunity cost. Just to recap, you've got to be rigorous, not ruthless. And just to recap, you've got to have the entrepreneur challenge. So it's my challenge to you, ladies and gentlemen, friends. Set a time now. Write down right now how you're progressing towards your goal, whatever that goal is. And 1 week from now, at the next GYLS Momentum Session webinar, review that and see, are you being an entrepreneur or are you being an entrepreneur, a go-getter? I have a high belief in just something personal that one must be hard on yourself. Not so hard that you self-loathe and such like that. Not ruthless, but rigorous. Because I expect a lot from myself. And I have to say, it's not about the result. It's about the rigor. It's about the effort you put in, okay? If you cannot control the result, but you can control the effort, talk about the effort. Be rigorous on the effort. I hope this makes sense. What I'm trying to say is, if you're in a competition with many people, say a sporting competition, you can't control what other people do, okay? You can only control what you do. So don't go crazy on yourself if you're not first in the race, but do go crazy on yourself, crazy hard on yourself if you do not put as much effort as you can. This is something very important. You can only control yourself, right? Your mama can't control you. Your friends can't control you. They might still love you if you do not make the effort to achieve what you want to achieve. But it's up to you to step up. It's up to you to learn. It's up to you to take aim, and it's up to you to take action. And we have a fantastic support group here, and I wish you all the very best of luck. Just remember, I want the very most for you. The very thing I want the most for you is here you have the action, the aspiration, the motivation, and here you have the achievement. Hopefully today I've helped fill the gap. You have the entrepreneur challenge. 1 week, I want to hear where you're at, what the progress you made, right? You take 2 steps forward, that's still 2 steps forward. I know you're all brilliant, and you've been absolutely fantastic today, even with the technical difficulties, even with my ambiguous accent, even with the jokes. Sergio, do we have any questions?
I can check to see right now. As of right now, no, but from the moment you asked that, there's a lag from being live. So people won't start posting for a little bit. So if you want to keep going for a little bit to give people a chance to post questions, if we get any, I'll let you know. If not, then you can just send us home.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, friends, basically right now we're waiting to see if there are any questions. I'll just recap really quickly what we did and what we can take and go from here. We started off with taking aim. What did this mean? It meant being honest with yourself or congruent with yourself. It means having what you want to achieve and then going out and achieving it. Because if you don't, that's living a dishonest life to yourself. The potential is gone, as in the words of Mahatma Gandhi. From there, we moved on to action. Also, we talked about how Kanye West used to be cool. From there, we went to action. And we talked about how there's a gap between getting aspiration and achievement. We talked about some of the reasons why that happens. Some of the reasons were too much planning. You know that Mike Tyson quote, you're going to get punched in the face, do it fast so you can learn, so you can learn. There was a second thing, relying on other people to be motivated. Your family, your friends, they're still going to love you, right? Kumbaya, that sort of stuff. We are family. Then we had, okay, so those were the 2 things. Then we moved on to taking action. and how to prevent that and get the best. How to do this. The first way we talked about was Gamify. We talked about Tinder, we talked about Instagram, we talked about Snapchat, really fun. Gamify your goals, make them fun. Then we talked about opportunity costs, and we talked about squirrels. Everybody loves squirrels. Remember Ice Age, that squirrel? Hells yeah. We talked about how if you know that what you're missing out on, you know you're missing out on your goal, the distractions become easier to push away. And then lastly, we talked about the entrepreneur test. I'm very excited to hear what you have to say. If there are no questions at this point, that's fantastic. I will just screen share my email. I'd love any questions you have, either now or in the future. navdeepwork@hotmail.com. I am so excited to hear about your progress in the next week, and thank you for being the brilliant people that you are. Have a fantastic week. Thank you, Sergio.